You're very welcome along to the Matchbook NFL podcast as we head into this Sunday Super Bowl in San Francisco. Very excited to bring you this show. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined this week and throughout the season by Judah and Brad. So the guys are going to try and pick out a few winners with props, what side they're going on. Is there little alts here and there on one end or the other? Well, plenty of talking points there. And before we get going, Brad, I just want to bring you in on the championship games takeaways, but just general. And now this will be a narrative we probably will talk about when we speak about the game, so feel free to bring it elsewhere. But to start with, your comment in the takeaways here: have the Pats ever faced a real offense? And it is the schedule throughout the season, the nature of the schedule, that they have had a soft ride, be it backup quarterbacks or even the teams they're playing. But are they here on merit, or do you genuinely feel they could be vulnerable this Sunday?
It is a tricky question because, as we'll get into, the schedule is a joke. Like I can't imagine an easier path for a defense to a Super Bowl. Like the last two games they played was obviously, I think, the Jets and the Dolphins, and then worst offensive line in the league, injured and bad offensive line against Houston in the snow, and then obviously backup quarterback in the snow. The second half of that game, there was about 4 yards total offense. So it will be a different question this weekend, but I also think there is still a good defense. So I am conflicted with a lot of this.
Yeah, and look, we'll get into a lot of that. And Judah, to be honest, your comment is something I thought about during the game. I was almost the Broncos Pats, that is. I was almost pretending to enjoy it, if that makes sense. That might sound harsh. I did love it, and I always think of your comment, Judah, that we got to be grateful for football. But as you say yourself, Stidham versus Pats with an unexpected blizzard, which it was pretty much as unexpected as blizzards go. To be fair, it doesn't quite hit the same as Mahomes versus the other big three.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we got a taste of what we think of it in an NFC Championship game. We like that on both sides, and we've been blessed with watching Mahomes duke it out with the rest of the AFC, and watching Jared Stidham in a blizzard was not the same. I just have to say on the blizzard point, this idea that you can't pass in a blizzard is just complete nonsense. In fact, it's probably easier to pass, actually, given that the pass rush really has no traction and is really, really slowed down in snow. And we have all of not even a year between the Rams-Eagles game last year, which also had a second half blizzard and also saw Matthew Stafford pass a lot and successfully in the snow as they almost mounted a crazy comeback. It's not as though the snow is this unstoppable force. It was just a really sad, pathetic way to watch an AFC Championship game, as kind of each team, barely. The Patriots were just trying to run the clock out, and Denver really could do nothing but throw screen passes that New England saw coming. All that is to say, I still miss it. I feel like 2 weeks without football is brutal, and a little bit of perspective has reminded me of that. But a crazy season, and certainly you can look at it from the preseason odds of who's actually in the Super Bowl, which is wild. But I don't think anyone thought that both of Sam Darnold and Drake May would be leading their respective Super Bowl teams after an era of such dominant football. And it's not that Drake May is there, to Brad's point, because he became or led the team on his back, becoming the next wave of quarterback. It's possible he is on that trajectory, of course, but this is not a Patriots team that went to the Super Bowl because Drake May put the team on his back and was elite in the playoffs. It was a lot of exactly the circumstances which Brad outlined. So it's it's possible it's a new era of football. It's possible this is a game of randomness. Things are going to happen. We might be right back to the old dominant quarterback way, but definitely a very different season.
Yeah, different season for sure. And interesting points there on the Broncos. But just very quickly, so those last couple of plays from memory now, Stidham, there was a couple of throws in there, didn't quite happen. You were happy with some of those plays, or maybe they should have been thrown throughout, and obviously the Pats, I guess, just limped over the line.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of drives, they just sort of throwing screen passes that were getting blown up. There was nothing, and then they threw down the field once, and it was just a horrific throw. But the offense kind of crumbled in the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, and we'll get into in terms of the specific teams with the Seahawks and The Pats, before we get going, last chance to get on board with our Pod 50 offer. So if you enter the bonus code Pod 50, most generous offer there for NFL fans, you can get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. Full T's and C's available on screen. Just enter the bonus code Pod 50. Guys, before we get into the game itself, Brad, I'll start with you. Maybe traditions in terms of the Super Bowl for you, and then more importantly for our listeners and viewers, how do you go about betting the Super Bowl yourself in terms of how many bets do you end up with? Does it depend year on year? Do you have bets that you 100% do every year? You know what I mean? So there's a lot in that, so take it away, mate.
Super Bowl, like actually watching the game, I've become more of a hermit, but I'd rather just watch it on my own and just, follow the bets, bet live, rather than be sociable. Because, you end up getting drunk and making worse decisions or whatever. So yeah, I just like watching the game on my own nowadays. Bets, I normally have a lot, like, I don't know, 30, 40. Which is like everything that happens in the game is good or bad, so that's fun in itself. And it's everything. It's player props, it's game props, it's novelty props, it's anthem length. So yeah, I'll be involved in most things that happen at some point. And then the game. Do we want to get into the game now?
Yeah, just a sec. We might get Judah's then thoughts and strategy because it is interesting. So I'm going to go under for you with your 30-40 bets versus Brad, Judah, but I may be wrong, mate. And then how would you normally watch the Super Bowl versus perhaps this year?
It is definitely an under there. I, too, like Brad, usually a very small group. I think my worst trade is watching a football game with me. It's not fun. But this year I'll be watching with 70,000 others in Santa Clara, which is very exciting. But I think in terms of a betting standpoint, like this is, a bettor's dream in the sense of the sports books and other operators are offering a much bigger menu than usual, which means there are more spots to try and pick off. So, use the power of selection, find those spots. I'm not going to be betting, 30 to 40 bets, maybe variations of the same game parlay with an adjusted leg. But, as always, pick the spots as, it is a regular football game. And then, on a lot of the novelty props, there's going to be some stuff that's mispriced. So always like to attack those.
Okay, Brad. So let's start with maybe a couple of those 30 to 40 bets in terms of how you see this game playing out. First of all, how you started your analysis and how you've ended up on a couple of these selections. Maybe start with your first couple there in the main slot.
Yes. So the thing I'm probably most sure of is that the Patriots are going to struggle to move the ball. I think you've seen that in the playoffs with Drake May's numbers against. Now he's playing elite defenses. Sometimes the conditions haven't been good, but I think even when they have been good, he's struggled against the Texans, the Chargers, and the Broncos. Even in the first half last week, maybe he had an injury there as well. That's some of the excuse. But then the two games before that, he looked bad. You kind of look at the rushing game, and New England are 21st in rushing DVOA. Seattle is the best run defense in the league when you look at anything. So that's not going to go. The Patriots are still fairly committed to the run game. So then I feel like they're going to be a lot of second and third and longs after unsuccessful runs. And then the question is, well, can they block the pass rush? And again, no, I don't think we've seen throughout the playoffs that they can't block the pass rush. That the left tackle he's given up like 5 pressures a game, and DeMarcus Lawrence probably has his number. So Drake May's taken 5 sacks a game throughout the playoffs. I would not be surprised to see that again, because the way he plays is he attacks downfield, and that's perfect when you're playing the Dolphins or the Jets and they can't get to you and then the corners are bad. But when your offensive line can't hold up and your receivers aren't open, you end up taking a lot of sacks. And we've seen, again, that the ball security is not good. He's got small hands, famously. He's more likely to fumble. And he's still aggressive with throws. So I do see them struggling, and I do see some turnovers from the sack fumble or, a late throw over the middle. So that was the thing I was sort of fairly confident in. And then, can Seattle move the ball? This is what I'm less confident in. But basically, because we're talking about this New England defense, so are they good or have they just faced bad teams? And my instinct initially was, I think they're bad. They've had a nice schedule, but I also think then they match up quite nicely, because the weakness of this Seattle team is the interior. It's the center and the right guard. PFF grades. That's the weakness. That's where the pressures come from. And New England, by pressure rate, has the best 2 defensive tackles in the league when rushing over the guard. So you can't double team Milton Williams. And you can't double the other guy as well, Christian Barmore, because you've only got 3 guards basically, and 2 guards and a center. So one of them's probably going to have a one-on-one matchup, and then when those guys are on the field, they give up about 3 yards per carry. It's one of the best top 5 run defenses in the league in terms of rushing success rate. So I can also see Seattle in a lot of second and third and longs, and then can they block that pass rush on the interior without play action? I also think probably not, because Sam Darnold on first down, elite, like best in the NFL and EPA per play. They use play action. They're superb. They go for 15 yards an attempt. They're superb. As soon as they get into third and long, they're the 31st offense in the NFL in EPA per play. And New England is also very good as a defense in that scenario. So I came around to starting to see it of a lot more of a defensive game, that both teams in a lot of second and long. And then obviously we know the thing with Sam under pressure. He goes from like 8th in the NFL without pressure to 24th in the NFL with pressure. And as I say, I think he should be facing more pressure than usual. So yeah, it's all leading me towards a lower scoring game.
Okay, so that's set it up well for a couple of selections, but we'll go to Judah first, just in terms of the game he sees playing out. So just incidentally on the prizes, Judah, at time recording this Thursday morning, Seahawks 146 on the money line versus Patriots 3.1. Seahawks laying 4.5 at 198. 202 for the same number the other direction for the Patriots, and 45.5 is the total under Slight Fab at 196.
Yeah, not a game I'm going to attack on the kind of main lines, shockingly. But I do think I agree to some extent with a lot of Brad's analysis and the idea of each team struggling to move the ball, but I'll narrow in, I think, on the run games in particular. And we can talk. They're probably the best 2 run defenses in the NFL, especially with a healthy Milton Williams back for New England, and Robert Spillane as well, since he returned from injury, has been terrific. I think on the Seahawks side, it's a little bit more worrisome in as much as I don't know if the Seahawks are going to give more than 3-4 carries to another back. Kenneth Walker should see the majority of that share, but still, I don't think he's going to be very efficient with his touches, and I think the Seahawks are likely to tilt more to the pass. To what degree are they going to be successful? I think that brings up a lot of Brad's points, which I'm certainly less sure of. But my number one bet here to kick us off is going to be Kenneth Walker under 73.5 rush yards. I think this line's probably going to continue to trickle down. And it really just gets at, if you look at the Patriots' run defense over the course of a season, it's going to give, I think, a very different picture than what I believe to be the current reality of this team, that in the first half of the season was number 2 in rush success rate, number 4 in rush EPA allowed. And then as they've gotten their guys back and throughout the playoffs, it's a team allowing a 32% rush success rate and has really been dominant in the run defense. I do think we see a somewhat slow, inefficient game with not too many plays. And I think a lot of that's going to come out of a guy like Kenneth Walker's rush usage.
Okay, and any alts tempting on Walker, but I guess late, if they're winning the game, they're running the clock, so you may get up to 50-60. You're happy enough with just the main line?
Yeah, I think it's also a question of being slightly off relative to what I think a lot of the projection is.
Yeah. Now for you, Brad, you're going a little bit different angle, completely same thinking on it in terms of the rushing yards, but you're going to attack the overall rushing yards and an interesting Drake May selection as well.
Yeah, so just want to back up Judah's there. When Milton Williams has played more than 50% of the snaps, the Patriots haven't allowed any running back to go over 50 yards, which I thought was quite interesting. So I went for the total rush yards in the game, and it's pretty much everything we've spoken about, to probably maybe the 2 best run defenses in the NFL with dodgy offensive line. So at the minute at Pinnacle, the line is 223 rushing yards with the under about 5 to 6. And I know the matchbook brokerage will basically quote you that line if you want to go and do that, or you obviously shop around at various sports books. But that was a way I like to play it. And then I feel like the only way you lose that bet is if Drake May goes nuts on the ground. Like I don't see the running backs having a lot of success as is, but I do see the Patriots turning to Drake May with his legs. Designed runs, whatever. Throw everything they've got here. And if so, as a kind of a little hedge, and B, another way to take advantage of the running back struggling is May to lead the game in rush yards. And that's, again, various prices, but around 13-2 or probably 7-1 you can get. And I think that's quite a good look as well.
Okay, yeah, a couple of ways to go about it. You have the main bet there, but almost a saver, as Brad touched on, / a bit of value there in the Drake May. And that's quite a fun bet to watch throughout, because one big run could, of course, do that for any sort of player there. So they're the main picks there. I have to ask the guys for a long shot each. And Judah, if you were to play on the alt lines, how would you go about it? I guess if you are going to lay a big points, Super Bowl may be the game to go, just given obviously, no game for 8 months. So injuries are off the cards, at least. You'd hope so anyway. Backups are off the cards anyway.
Yeah. Now going Seahawks -9.5 here. I think there is a path towards the Patriots moving the ball against the Seahawks defense. I do think Drake May has not played well in recent games. I also don't want to be a prisoner of recency bias. And this is still a quarterback whose profile should allow him to succeed against very good defenses by virtue of his ability to create, by virtue of his ability to scramble, whether that's running or passing. Now, of course, that is only some subset of plays in which Drake May is going to be able to scramble. There are still plenty of, so to speak, in-system plays where, yes, the Seattle defensive line presents a major challenge. And there's a real fumbling risk and a real sack risk, as we've seen from Drake May. And I think the reason or the path here is that the Seattle defense completely overwhelms New England, and the Seattle passing game is still decently situated. If we're going to, again, we don't really know the relative strength of the Patriots defense because it's been so opponent skewed and dealing with injuries. But no one is going to be able, I don't think, to cover Jackson Smith-Njigba in man coverage. He's been completely dominant over the course of the season. And I don't even Christian Gonzalez is no match. And I'm sure that the Seahawks will be able to move him around the formation. And it is still a situation where, certainly with turnovers in play, the Seahawks, I think, have a lot higher mass of really front running them and playing kind of a similar game to what they've done against the non-Ram opponents in recent weeks, allowing 10 points, and then the offense playing a average to above average game. But this is a spot where I'm not in love with the tails, but it is Daniel, as you said, it is the Super Bowl. You do have to kind of get that one last long shot. And if I was gonna choose a tail here, I think it's Seattle to win with decent margin.
Yeah, you got to play to the end, obviously, as well. So, Brad, I know you're not playing on the main lines or the alts, but any thinking either alts, or were you tempted? What was the closest you got between the Seahawks? Say that Seahawks -9.5 versus money line, which isn't a many miles away from the same price. Patriots money line, that is.
I think there is definitely a world where Seattle blows them out, and I think that is the schedule world where Seattle has had one of the hardest schedules in the league, and New England has had a historically easy schedule, and you don't see that on the field until they play, and then you're like, oh, none of these stats matter because they're in different leagues. So that's definitely a world. Whereas Seattle, I think the biggest loss they've had this season is 4 points, which was in week 1, before they were really the team they are. So I just don't think there's a world where New England wins with margin, and I think there's definitely a world where Seattle wins by 30.
Oh, wow. Okay, so play up the alts as much as they'll let you on there, just in case. Fun bets. Look, if you're making 30 or 40 bets, Brad, I'm sure 1 or 2 of them are something on the lines of that, mate. But if you wanted to get the under on side, or a little bit what you're saying in terms of struggling to run the ball, but maybe still run the ball, if that makes sense, you've built a nice little bet builder for us here at around 3-1, 4.1.
Yeah, in the matchbook bet builder, we've got DeMarcus Lawrence sack, and he should primarily be lined up over the left tackle Will Campbell, who, as I said earlier, has been a bit of a turnstile in these playoffs. And also, there was a stat from Ben Solak at ESPN talking about Campbell has quite short arms, 33-inch arms, and his pressure rate against guys with long arms, like DeMarcus Lawrence, stats actually goes up, as in he does struggle with these kind of longer, bendier rushes. And you can tie Lawrence Sack and the full game to go under 45.5 points. And that gives you a reverse correlation for some reason. I hope no one's listening and changes that. But 4.1 is the price there, which is fruity, I think.
Okay, lock that in before it gets moved around there. Best bet time here, and Judah, along the same theme. So I will ask if you're going to partner Walker and Stevenson in a same game parlay, as you call them, over in the States yourself. But the main bet, if you were to have one bet on the Super Bowl, you're going to lay Stevenson's rushing yards.
Yeah, under 50.5. I mean, this is the Seattle defense that is top of the league in virtually every rush defense metric. And yes, Ramondre Stevenson has gotten a lot of the work early on, but I think there are kind of two factors at play here. Number one, like there is some probability of TreVeyon Henderson getting back to that share that they kind of had towards the end of the season, less the playoffs, and also like this is to your point, this is the Super Bowl. You're leaving it all out on the field. I think they use Drake May as a designed rusher a bit more than they have earlier in the season. And then even if none of those things happen, and there's some probability of that happening, this is a New England offense that I don't think is going to be playing from ahead the entire game and able to run the ball. And this is a really dominant rush defense. I don't really think Stevenson's getting to 12. I mean, his line's 14.5. I don't think he's getting to 15, 20 carries. I think we're probably looking at something like 12 to 14 inefficient ones. And if you kind of take the all of the game scripts and look at the medians, which is what we're attacking here on a main line, I think it's very, very unlikely that Stevenson kind of gets a bunch of carries for even moderate success. This is a really dominant Seattle rush defense, and I think New England chooses to attack, not via Stevenson inside runs.
Okay, Brad, for you, best bet on the card. Very interested in this one.
Yes, we're going first half under 22.5. It's around 1.89 when I checked earlier. Might go up, I guess. You would, generally the public might bet over, so probably not a rush to bet this. But yeah, it's obviously a lot of things we spoke about. And then historically, you have seen Super Bowls in the first half be lower scoring, whether that's nerves on the offense, whether that is defenses like being the most fired up they've ever been in their lives. Like it does strike me every year. You watch the first quarter and it looks like they've been shot out of a cannon, the defensive ends, just rushing the passer. So I know some people might go, oh, that's a trend. There's going to be that in any sample of 60 games or whatever. But to me, that looks like a real thing, that the first half is lower scoring. And then you kind of get the 40-minute halftime, and maybe they lose that adrenaline and offenses come back a little bit in the second half. So, first half under 22.5.
Yeah, Judah, what do you make of that trend, quote unquote, that Brad mentioned there, first half? I mean, you get that in all sports in terms of bigger games, but look, last game of the season, is there anything in that?
Maybe. It's hard to know with a tiny sample what's actually believable. But in some spots, that's like exactly, that is the type of mindset where there could be value, is like having a very good fundamental reason why X thing happens and why a model can't properly account for it. That doesn't mean the effect's not real, even if we can't quantify it because we only have a small sample.
Okay, before we go, reminder, inside.matchbet.com, you'll get there the guys' main selections. You got your best bet there, long shot, main bets there. Just a question before we go, and we touched on the top of the show in terms of strategy, that sort of thing. But say, Judah, for you, if you're building together a couple of same game parlays, or you're in the UK or in Ireland here, you're using the Matchbook Bet Builder, is it the under rushing yard you're sort of taking a bit from everywhere to feed into a narrative into your same game parlay, or how are you going about exactly trying to manufacture something for listeners that want to build around one there, but use some of your guys' selections, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's kind of taking that as a first assumption and saying what happens as a result of that. And there's some angles even we talked about, which is like, is Ramondre Stevenson going under because Drake May is taking more rush yards? Is it because TreVeyon Henderson is breaking out some runs? What happens if neither team can run the ball? Someone having passing success. Who's having that passing success? There are lots of different ways to kind of build out from the first order team A or both of the teams struggling to run the ball to what happens as a result of the second, third, fourth, fifth order effects of that.
And then Brad, question to you, slightly different. So you have your 30-40 bets on the Super Bowl. That was a number obviously picked out, but it won't be far off, I guess. Is percentage-wise your stake, is it leveled throughout the 30-40 bets? Is it, say, you've got your main 10 bets, a lot of fun bets? Have you got a lot of big prices, short prices? Tough to answer in a couple of minutes, but just give us a generic thing for the listeners. And if they are building their own bet builders on Matchbook, which we have this year, how they go about it in the Super Bowl.
It's dependent on limits and how much you like it ultimately. I mean, I have the most money on no 2-point attempt, no 2-point conversion attempt at the minute, just because I made the fair price minus 220, or whatever that is in decimal, and it was minus 170 on Pinnacle or minus 175 on some UK books, and I could get lots of money on it. So that's it's as simple as that sometimes. Like, what would you like best, and how much can you get down?
Very good. Very good. Guys, thoroughly enjoyed the season with yourselves. Insights.matchbook.com, as I said. Been a new look season, being quicker podcast. Let us know in the comments how you enjoyed the season, what you'd like to see back for next season as well on the Matchbook NFL podcast. But once again, my thanks to Judah and Brad throughout the season. Judah, enjoy being there, sampling the atmosphere in San Francisco. Brad, enjoy watching it on your own, mate. I know it's ultimately the best thing to do. I'm sort of a little bit more social, lads. I'll have a couple of people over for the match, but by and large, I agree on a lot of what you said. Really like it, the bit of watching on your own, that sort of thing. But as I said, insights.matchbook.com. One final time, recap of the guys' picks. Thanks for listening this season. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll chat to you next season. Bye-bye.